Before we begin, I need to give you a warning. The Ouija board is not a harmless game. It is not a toy you pull out at a party, nor is it a clever way to scare your friends. Those who understand its true nature will tell you it is a doorway, one that swings open easily, but rarely shuts without cost. Once opened, you cannot control who or what steps through. Some who dabble in it may walk away untouched, dismissing the experience as nonsense. But others invite something dark into their lives. And when that happens, the shadows do not easily let go. They cling, they feed, they change you. What you are about to hear is the story of a summer that began in light-hearted curiosity and ended in fear. It is a story recorded in a book called Psychic Summer, written by Arnold and Coralee. But beyond the pages, it is a story that asks us to consider how fragile the line is between our world and whatever lies beyond. The year was 1966. The place, Fire Island, just off the coast of Long Island, New York. Fire Island had always been known as a retreat, a place of sun-washed boardwalks, shifting dunes, and a sense of freedom that drew artists, wanderers, and seekers. That summer, for friends, Michael, Arnold, Howard, and Francois had rented a beach house there. They expected nothing more than what anyone seeks from a summer by the sea: laughter, companionship, late nights, and the simple joy of escape. By day, the island was alive with light. The beaches filled with voices and music carried on the wind. The house the friends rented became a sanctuary from the ordinary world. By night, the air cooled, the waves crashed with hypnotic rhythm, and the boardwalk lamps flickered like guardians against the dark. Fire Island was beautiful, but isolated, and in isolation, the mind can play tricks. It started innocently enough. One evening, restless and curious, the group decided to make a Ouija board. They had heard of the strange phenomena it could create. Some were skeptical, others excited. All thought it would be a bit of harmless fun. The board itself was nothing elaborate, just letters scrawled on a surface, a glass turned upside down to act as a planchette. But once placed in the center of the table, that ordinary object seemed to take on a gravity of its own. At first, nothing happened. The friends laughed, nudged each other, accused one another of pushing the glass. But then, slowly, the glass began to move in a way that none of them could explain. It spelled out a name: Zena. The spirit claimed to be a young woman who had drowned in 1873. Zena was gentle. Her words, spelled out letter by letter, carried a tone of sadness, of longing. The friends were drawn in by her story. They pitied her. It was a soul trapped between worlds, still reaching for someone to hear her voice. Hours slipped by, unnoticed, as they asked questions and received answers that chilled them, yet fascinated them. But Zena was not the only presence that came through. Another name soon began to appear: Bethlene. She claimed to be Zena's sister, where Zena's tone was soft and mournful. Bethlene's was sharp, jealous, and hostile. The energy in the room changed. The glass no longer slid. Gently it jerked violently, as though propelled by anger. The atmosphere grew heavy, and the friends began to feel that something had shifted. They were no longer the ones in control. The disturbances soon spread beyond the board. Ashtrays were flung across the room by invisible hands. Objects disappeared only to reappear in places that made no sense. An alarm clock vanished. Astrological charts went missing, and then one day, without explanation, a starfish appeared on the coffee table, fresh as though plucked from the sea. Polaroid photographs developed with strange shapes embedded in them, eerie shadows that no one could explain. Reactions among the friends varied. Arnold became obsessed, burying himself in books about the occult, reincarnation, and psychic phenomena, hoping to understand what was happening. Howard, ever the skeptic, refused to take part. He spent his nights at the local bar, shaking his head at the others, convinced it was either nonsense or group hysteria. Francois, on the other hand, was terrified. He felt hunted, convinced that something malicious had latched onto them. Michael wavered between fascination and fear. And then came Melissa, a seductive and enigmatic woman. She drifted into their circle that summer. Melissa's presence seemed to inflame the entity further. Through the board, Bethlene expressed jealousy, rage, and spite. She wanted Melissa gone, The more attention Melissa received, the darker Bethlene's messages became. The friends began to feel that they were no longer simply playing with an idea. They were caught in a tug-of-war with something they could neither see nor control. Strange accidents began to happen. One of the friends narrowly escaped a car crash. Nights became restless, filled with unshakable feelings of being watched. Shadows seemed to move where no shadows should be. The line between coincidence and curse grew thinner by the day. The climax came when the friends realized they could no longer keep the story to themselves. They feared what would happen if they continued in silence, and so they chose to bring it into the open. They appeared on a late-night talk show, recounting the strange story of Zena, Bethlene, and the haunting of their summer. Perhaps it was the act of giving voice to the spirit's story, perhaps it was the exposure of the secret. But in the weeks that followed, the disturbances began to fade. The oppressive weight lifted, the voices fell silent. Yet the experience left its mark. The friends carried with them the memory of that summer, the fear, the doubt, and the sense that they had peered behind a veil that was not meant to be lifted. Was Zena truly there? Was Bethlene real? Or had their collective belief, fueled by suggestion and fear, conjured something out of their own minds? Science might argue for the power of suggestion, for the way groups can amplify one another's beliefs. But believers will tell you there are no coincidences when doors like this are opened. The story of psychic summer lingers because it captures a truth we rarely want to face, that belief itself has power. Whether ghosts are real or not, whether spirits truly rise through boards and spells, the act of belief shapes reality. A group gathered around a board, fearful, open, and willing, can summon forces, whether from within themselves or from some darker place beyond. And so, we are left with questions. Was Zena simply a fragment of their imagination, or a lonely soul still adrift after death? Was Bethlene the jealous spirit she claimed to be, or something far more sinister hiding behind a name? Or were they all simply staring into the reflection of their own fears? The answers may never come, but one thing is certain. The experience was real to them. The fear was real. The danger was real. The consequences were lasting. As fascinating as this story is, let it serve as a warning. Ouija boards are not entertainment. They are not games to satisfy idle curiosity. Those who use them risk opening themselves to forces that do not care about intention, forces that may enter uninvited and refuse to leave. The tale of psychic summer reminds us that some doors should remain closed, some questions should remain unasked, and some games are far more dangerous than they appear. If you take nothing else from this story, take this. When you open the door to the unknown, you cannot control what walks through. Be careful where your curiosity leads you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.